My in-laws, who always rejected me, suddenly showered me with gifts when I got pregnant, then demanded everything back when their favorite son's wife got pregnant. I, 32F, met my husband Jerry, 33M, through work about 6 years ago. We dated for 3 years before getting married, and we've been married for 3 years now. Jerry grew up in a small town about 7 hours away from where we currently live. His parents, Margaret, 61F, and Robert, 63M, never seemed to accept me from the beginning. When Jerry first introduced me to his parents, they barely made eye contact. Margaret asked a few basic questions about my job and family, then spent the rest of the evening talking to Jerry about people I didn't know. Robert mostly sat in his armchair watching TV with occasional grunts as responses. The subsequent visits followed the same pattern. They never outright said anything rude, but their behavior made it clear I wasn't welcome. In contrast, they absolutely adored my brother-in-law Tom's 35M wife, Tamara, 34F. Tamara and Tom lived just 2 streets away from Jerry's parents. Tamara helped with Sunday dinners, joined Margaret for her book club, and generally conformed to all their expectations. At family gatherings, Margaret always pulled Tamara into conversations while I sat on the sidelines. Robert would talk about how wonderful it was to have Tom and Tamara nearby, with pointed looks in our direction. The main source of tension was our refusal to move closer to them. I grew up in our current city. My career as a specialized physical therapist is established here. Most importantly, my father lives nearby and was diagnosed with Parkinson's 4 years ago. His condition has been steadily worsening, and I help him with medical appointments and daily tasks. Moving away wasn't an option for me. Jerry never wanted to move back to his hometown either. He left at 18 for college and deliberately chose a job far away. According to him, his parents monitored his every move growing up. They dictated his friends, activities, and even his college major initially. He switched majors without telling them and only revealed it after graduation. The resulting argument lasted for months. We visited Jerry's family every 2 or 3 months, which seemed reasonable considering the distance. We even paid for them to fly out to us twice a year. During these visits, they continued to make comments about how we should move closer, how families should stick together, and how Tom and Tamara were such good children for staying close. Last December, I discovered I was pregnant. Jerry and I were thrilled. We had been trying for about a year, and the timing felt right with my career stable and Jerry recently getting a promotion. When we called his parents to share the news, something unexpected happened. Margaret screamed with joy. Robert actually got on the phone to congratulate us. The next day, they called again to ask if they could visit that weekend. We agreed, surprised by their sudden enthusiasm. They arrived with 3 large suitcases full of baby clothes, toys, and nursery decorations. Margaret hugged me for the first time ever and kept touching my stomach, even though I wasn't showing yet. Robert shook Jerry's hand and patted him on the back repeatedly. They took us out to dinner at an expensive restaurant and insisted on paying. Before leaving, Margaret handed me a small velvet box containing a diamond bracelet that had belonged to her grandmother. She said it was always meant for the mother of their first grandchild. Robert gave Jerry an envelope with $5,000 for the nursery. The attention continued over the next few months. They called twice a week to check on me. Packages arrived regularly with more baby items, prenatal vitamins, and pregnancy books. Margaret sent me expensive makeup with a note saying I deserved to feel beautiful during pregnancy. Robert sent Jerry rare whiskey to celebrate impending fatherhood. In February, Jerry and I had planned a trip to Greece before the pregnancy advanced too far. We'd been saving for it for over a year. When his parents found out, they insisted on paying for first-class tickets and upgraded our hotel. They called it their special gift for bringing the first grandchild into the family. The trip was wonderful. We spent 10 days exploring Athens and Santorini. I used some of the makeup Margaret had sent, and wore the diamond bracelet to a special dinner. We took plenty of photos to share with both our families. Upon returning, we learned that Tom and Tamara were also expecting. Tamara had struggled with fertility issues and had gone through several rounds of IVF. We were genuinely happy for them and called to congratulate them immediately. Jerry suggested we take them out to dinner to celebrate, which we did the following weekend when we visited his hometown. 3 days after that dinner, Margaret called. Her tone was completely different from the warm, excited one she'd used for months. She explained that with 2 grandchildren on the way, they needed to be fair to both couples. She asked me to return the diamond bracelet, the baby clothes, and all other gifts they had sent. She wanted Jerry to return the $5,000 for the nursery. Most shockingly, she asked us to reimburse them for the Greece trip, since they now needed to do something equivalent for Tom and Tamara. When I asked about the makeup I had already used, Margaret said I should calculate the value of what remained and send them a check for the used products. She ended the call saying they would come by the following weekend to collect everything. I told Jerry about the call, and he immediately phoned his parents. I heard him ask if they were serious, followed by increasingly loud arguments. He pointed out that they had explicitly said the gifts were for us because we were having their first grandchild. The response apparently was that circumstances had changed, and now both babies would be arriving around the same time, so the first grandchild concept no longer applied. After hanging up, Jerry suggested we just return everything to keep the peace. He said his parents could make life difficult if we refused. I disagreed completely. The gifts were given freely, we had already used some items, and the entire request seemed absurd. We argued about it for hours before going to bed angry. The next morning, I blocked Margaret and Robert's numbers on my phone. Jerry tried to convince me to reconsider, but I refused. I explained that returning the gifts would only reinforce their manipulative behavior. These weren't just any gifts, they represented a sudden acceptance after years of coldness, only to be withdrawn the moment something changed. Returning them would tell his parents they could control us with money and gifts. Jerry still seemed torn. He agreed the request was ridiculous but wanted to avoid a major family rift. We spent the next few days in a tense standoff, barely speaking except about basic household matters. On Thursday evening, Jerry sat down with me and asked me to explain exactly why this mattered so much to me. I laid out how his parents had treated me for years, the cold shoulders, the comparison to Tamara, the subtle digs about not moving closer. I pointed out how they only accepted me once I was pregnant with their grandchild, as if my only value was in producing their legacy. Most importantly, I explained that accepting gifts with strings attached would set a dangerous precedent for our future. Jerry was quiet for a long time after I finished speaking. Then he apologized for not standing up to his parents more firmly over the years. He admitted he had always hoped they would eventually accept me on their own, without him having to force the issue. The next day, Jerry called his parents while I was in the room. He told them we would not be returning any gifts, nor would we be reimbursing them for the Greece trip. He said their request revealed how conditional their love and support had always been, not just for me but for him as well. When they started to argue, he cut them off and said he needed time away from them to focus on his growing family. That weekend, Jerry's parents called repeatedly. When he didn't answer, they left voicemails calling me greedy and manipulative. They texted saying I had turned their son against them. Jerry blocked them on his phone too. Update 1: 3 weeks later the situation with my in-laws escalated after my last post. Margaret and Robert began contacting Jerry's extended family, telling them we had stolen family heirlooms and refused to return them. Jerry's aunt called him, concerned about the diamond bracelet she thought had been promised to her daughter. When Jerry explained the actual situation, she seemed skeptical but said she would talk to Margaret. A week after blocking my in-laws, I received a large envelope in the mail containing printouts of our Greece vacation photos from social media. Each photo had nasty comments written across them. There were circles around the diamond bracelet and one picture with $15,000 thief written beside it. Another showed me at dinner with using our son for money scrawled across my face. Jerry was furious when he saw them and immediately took the envelope to the local post office to file a harassment complaint. That same day, Tom called Jerry. We hadn't heard from Tom or Tamara since the dinner where we celebrated their pregnancy. Tom sounded upset and asked if Jerry could talk privately. Jerry put the call on speaker with Tom's knowledge so I could hear. Tom started by apologizing for how his parents were behaving. He explained that Margaret and Robert had told them we refused to return gifts because we were jealous of their pregnancy. They claimed we resented the attention shifting away from us. Tom said he initially believed his parents but became suspicious when they suggested he and Tamara should demand compensation from us directly. Tamara refused to participate, saying it wasn't their business what gifts Jerry's parents had given us. This led to an argument between Tamara and Margaret, with Margaret accusing Tamara of not standing up for her unborn child's rights. The most surprising part came next. Tom admitted that he and Tamara had been having problems with Margaret and Robert for years, despite living close by. Margaret repeatedly entered their house unannounced using a spare key. Robert criticized Tom's career choices constantly. They pressured Tamara into IVF even when doctors recommended waiting, showing up at medical appointments uninvited and questioning the doctors. Tom revealed that Tamara had been deeply unhappy living so close to the in-laws but felt trapped because they had put the down payment on their house. The condition was never explicitly stated but always implied: they needed to stay close and available. Tamara had wanted to move to a larger city where Tom had a job offer 2 years ago, but Margaret cried for days and Robert threatened to disown Tom. Jerry was stunned by these revelations. He had always assumed Tom and Tamara were happy with the arrangement since they seemed to get along so well with their parents. Tom explained that they had just become better at managing the situation and keeping the peace. The conversation shifted when Tom mentioned Tamara had been avoiding Margaret since their argument. Margaret had shown up at their house unannounced again and found Tamara packing away some baby gifts from Jerry's parents. These were items Margaret and Robert had given them after finding out about their pregnancy, things very similar to what they had given us. Tamara refused to return them when Margaret demanded, saying they were gifts for the baby, not bargaining chips. Tom ended the call by saying he needed time to figure out his next steps. He wasn't ready to cut off his parents entirely but was considering moving away after the baby was born. Jerry offered our support and invited them to visit us if they needed space for Margaret and Robert. 2 days later, Tamara called me directly. This was unusual as we had never spoken one-on-one before. She apologized for not reaching out sooner and admitted she had always felt awkward around me because of how Margaret compared us. She had been afraid to form a real relationship with me in case it angered her in-laws. Tamara asked if she and Tom could visit us the following weekend. They needed to get away from Margaret and Robert, who had been showing up at their house daily since the argument. I immediately agreed and offered our guest room. When they arrived that Friday, Tamara looked exhausted. Her pregnancy was showing more than mine, though we were only about 6 weeks apart. Over dinner, she explained how Margaret had been overwhelming her with constant advice, criticism, and expectations. The argument over our gifts had been the breaking point for her. Tamara shared that she had always admired how Jerry and I maintained our independence despite the pressure. She had often wished for the courage to stand up to Margaret and Robert the way we did. Tom added that he had resented us at times for having it easy by living far away, not realizing how much criticism we still received. The 4 of us spent Saturday comparing notes on Margaret and Robert's behavior over the years. What emerged was a clear pattern of control through generosity, withdrawal of affection as punishment, and manipulation through family loyalty. We realized that the current situation with the gifts was just another manifestation of this pattern. By Sunday, Tom and Tamara had made a decision. They would look for a house in our city after their baby was born. Tom had already contacted the company that had offered him a job 2 years ago, and they were still interested. Tamara could transfer within her company. Most importantly, they would limit contact with Margaret and Robert going forward. Before they left, Tamara hugged me for the first time since we'd met. She whispered that she was looking forward to raising our children as cousins who actually liked each other, unlike the competitive relationship Margaret and Robert seemed to want to create. The following week, Jerry received an email from his father. Robert wrote that they were deeply hurt by our ingratitude and had consulted a lawyer about the diamond bracelet. The lawyer apparently told them they could claim it was a conditional gift tied to specific circumstances that no longer applied. They were preparing to take legal action if necessary. Jerry replied simply that any legal threats should go through our lawyer, whose contact information he attached. He added that they should consider how pursuing this would affect their relationship with both their sons and grandchildren. We haven't heard back from them directly since. Update 2: 2 months later, the pregnancy has been progressing well, and we learned we're having a boy. Jerry has been attending every appointment and reading all the baby books. My father's health has stabilized somewhat with a new medication combination, and he's excited about becoming a grandfather. Tom and Tamara visited us 3 more times over the past 2 months. They found a house in our city and put in an offer, which was accepted. Tom secured a position with the company he had contacted, starting 3 months after their baby's birth. Tamara arranged to transfer to her company's office here 6 months after delivery. During their last visit, Tamara shared that she had blocked Margaret's number after receiving dozens of messages daily, alternating between guilt trips and angry accusations. Tom limited his contact to 1 short phone call each week, during which Robert mainly lectured him about family responsibility. They hadn't told Margaret and Robert about their plans to move yet, fearing the backlash. We were maintaining our no-contact policy with Margaret and Robert when the situation took another turn. Jerry's cousin Melissa contacted him, concerned about comments Margaret had made at a family gathering. Margaret told everyone that Jerry and I had stolen family heirlooms and were selling them to finance a lavish lifestyle. She claimed we had been using the pregnancy to extract money from them, knowing they were vulnerable with excitement about a grandchild. Melissa didn't believe these stories because they contradicted what she knew about Jerry's character. She wanted to warn us about the rumors and offer support. She also revealed that Margaret and Robert had recently asked several family members for loans, claiming financial hardship due to helping Tom and Tamara with IVF costs. Jerry thanked Melissa for the information and clarified the situation. He explained that his parents had given us gifts when we announced our pregnancy, then demanded them back when they learned Tom and Tamara were also expecting. He shared photos of the defaced vacation pictures they had sent me and outlined their threatened legal action over the bracelet. Melissa was shocked and promised to correct the record with other family members. She mentioned that Margaret had always been possessive of her sons but had gotten worse in recent years. Robert had always gone along with whatever Margaret wanted to keep the peace. A week after that conversation, we received a formal letter from a lawyer regarding the diamond bracelet. The letter claimed the bracelet was a family heirloom conditionally gifted to the mother of the first grandchild, and since both pregnancies would result in grandchildren born around the same time, the condition was voided. The lawyer demanded the return of the bracelet or payment of its appraised value of $12,500. We forwarded the letter to our lawyer, who advised us that conditional gifts typically required clear terms stated at the time of giving. The lawyer prepared a response pointing out that the bracelet was presented as a gift without written conditions, and Margaret's subsequent statements about fairness did not constitute a legally binding condition. Meanwhile, Tom and Tamara faced their own legal threat. Margaret and Robert demanded repayment for the IVF treatments they had helped fund, claiming they had only contributed under the assumption that Tom and Tamara would remain living near them. When Tom refused, Robert threatened to place a lien on their house, claiming he had documentation showing the down payment was a loan, not a gift. This latest escalation prompted Tom to cut contact completely. He and Tamara consulted their own lawyer, who confirmed that the down payment could potentially be considered a gift if there was no loan agreement signed at the time. However, the threat was serious enough that they decided to refinance their current house to pay back the down payment amount before selling it, just to sever any financial ties. The four of us met for dinner after these developments, all feeling the weight of the situation. What had started as an unreasonable request for the return of gifts had evolved into legal threats and family smear campaigns. Yet, strangely, we all felt more united than ever. Tom apologized for the years he had spent siding with his parents, and Jerry acknowledged his own role in enabling their behavior by trying to keep the peace. Tamara and I compared notes on our pregnancies, sharing symptoms and cravings without the competition Margaret had tried to foster between us. We planned a joint baby shower organized by my friends, deliberately excluding Margaret and Robert. The most unexpected outcome was a call Jerry received from his maternal grandmother, Elizabeth. She had heard the family rumors and wanted Jerry's side of the story. After listening to his explanation, she was quiet for a moment before saying, "Margaret has always struggled with control. I thought she had improved, but I see it's gotten worse." She then revealed that the diamond bracelet had indeed been hers, but she had given it to Margaret as an unconditional gift 20 years ago. There had never been any stipulation about it going to the mother of the first grandchild. Elizabeth asked for our address, saying she wanted to send something for the babies. A week later, 2 packages arrived, one for us and one for Tom and Tamara. Inside each was a handwritten letter expressing Elizabeth's support and a separate jewelry box. Ours contained a set of antique silver baby items, a brush, comb, and rattle, that had belonged to Jerry's great-grandfather. Tom and Tamara's contained similar items from another branch of the family. The packages arrived on the day our lawyer sent the response to Margaret and Robert's legal threat. We haven't heard back from their lawyer yet, but Jerry received a text from an unknown number, likely a new phone, from his mother, consisting of just one line: "You've broken your father's heart." Jerry didn't respond. Update 3, 5 months later, final update: our son Alexander was born 3 weeks ago, healthy and perfect at 7 pounds, 4 ounces. The birth went smoothly, and we came home after 2 days in the hospital. Jerry took a month of paternity leave, and my father has been visiting daily, clearly smitten with his grandson. Tamara and Tom's daughter Emma arrived 2 weeks before Alexander. They moved into their new house in our city just a week before her birth, having sold their old place and repaid Margaret and Robert for the down payment. Tamara is recovering well and adjusting to motherhood. We've been taking turns visiting each other, sharing baby supplies and offering support. The legal situation with Margaret and Robert came to an anticlimactic end. After our lawyer's response to their demand letter, they never pursued the matter further. Their lawyer contacted ours to say the clients were not proceeding with the claim. We suspect the lawyer advised them their case was weak, or perhaps they realized the cost of litigation would exceed the value of the bracelet. Elizabeth, Jerry's grandmother, has been a surprising source of support. She sends weekly emails checking on us and asking for baby pictures. She even arranged a video call to see Alexander and told us she plans to visit in the summer. She explained that she had enabled Margaret's controlling behavior over the years by not speaking up and was trying to make amends. Margaret and Robert made one last attempt at contact a month before Alexander was born. They sent a large package containing baby clothes and toys with a note saying they wanted to be part of their grandson's life despite our misunderstandings. The note included no apology or acknowledgement of their behavior. After discussing it, Jerry and I decided to donate the items to a local women's shelter and maintain our no-contact policy. Tom received a similar package and made the same decision. He told us that the process of moving away and standing up to his parents had been difficult but liberating. Tamara seems like a different person now, more relaxed and confident. She mentioned that she had started therapy to address the anxiety created by years of walking on eggshells around Margaret and Robert. Jerry and I have settled into a routine with Alexander. The diamond bracelet sits in my jewelry box, not worn, but not returned either. It represents a boundary we established and maintained despite enormous pressure. The baby items from Elizabeth are displayed proudly in Alexander's nursery. We've learned through family channels that Margaret and Robert have been telling relatives they're estranged from both sons because of their controlling wives. Some family members believe them, but others have reached out to hear our side, like Melissa and Elizabeth did. Jerry responds honestly to those who ask directly but doesn't volunteer information otherwise. Last week, Tom and Tamara came over for dinner with Emma. We set up the babies next to each other on a playmat, took photos, and marveled at how different they looked despite being cousins. During the evening, Tom raised the question of what would happen if Margaret and Robert showed up unannounced, now that they knew where both couples lived. After some discussion, we all agreed on a plan. We wouldn't open the door, would communicate only through lawyers if necessary, and would call the police for trespassing if they refused to leave. It sounds harsh, but the months of harassment, legal threats, and emotional manipulation left us feeling we had no choice. Jerry's paternity leave ends next week and normal life will resume with the addition of Alexander. My father has offered to help with childcare 3 days a week, which will allow me to return to work part-time after my maternity leave. Tom and Tamara have found a daycare near their new house that has spots for Emma when Tamara returns to work. The 4 of us have started a tradition of Sunday dinners together, alternating houses each week. It's the kind of family relationship I always hoped for, supportive, equal, and without the power dynamics Margaret and Robert tried to create. The cousins will grow up together, hopefully forming a bond that lasts throughout their lives. As for the gifts that started this whole conflict, the clothes have been used by Alexander, the nursery items are installed, and the $5,000 went toward a college fund we set up. The expensive makeup is long gone. The trip to Greece remains a beautiful memory, documented in photos we've reclaimed by printing new copies without the defacement. We don't know what the future holds regarding Margaret and Robert. Jerry sometimes expresses sadness about the situation, particularly that his parents chose control over a relationship with their grandchildren. Tom has similar moments of regret. But both brothers agree that the current arrangement is healthier for everyone, especially the babies. For now, we're focusing on raising our children in a peaceful environment, supporting each other through the challenges of new parenthood, and building the kind of family dynamics we want to pass down to the next generation. If Margaret and Robert ever genuinely apologize and show they can respect boundaries, perhaps some limited contact might be possible, but we're not holding our breath, and we're not waiting for their approval to live our lives.